Hey guys, welcome to another video. So in this video, I wanted to, catch you up on some of the things that I've added since the last time. But I also wanted to go back and take a closer look at some of the things that I mentioned in passing in the first video, specifically the ladder system that I was working on, just so you can kind of get a better idea of like what actually goes into that. And then the last thing I wanted to do is that I have a problem that I want to address, and I figured I would just do it live here so you can kind of see, what that sort of process is like. All right, so something that I worked on was adding these little braziers to light the scene. And actually, what I did to make those was, let me go over here and show you. Oh, yeah, and I'll mention right here. So I have this weapon here. There's a light shining on it. There's a holy aura sound kind of coming off of it. So something I've been playing with is light and sound kind of drawing you towards the weapons because it's supposed to be like a blessed item or something like that. So once I pick that up, all that stuff will go away. But back to the braziers. So you see my little torch here, or sconce. So I had these things inside the buildings, but I wanted something bigger for outside, to kind of illuminate a larger area. And I didn't want to just stick torches all over the walls. So what I did is I took that model of the sconce, I chopped off the little arm, and then I chopped off the bottom, and then I mirrored the top and rotated it. So the bottom of this thing is basically just the top, mirrored and a little bit smaller on the bottom. And then I took a model of logs and kind of put that down in there, and then added the flames and the sounds and the light and all that stuff. So I think it turned out pretty cool. So other things I've added. I got a packet of assets from the Humble store. They had a thing, it was like 5,000 different assets for $20. I couldn't pass up that deal. And it came with way more stuff than I needed for this game. But it had some cool looking stuff that I might use for another game. If this one wraps up at some point. But among those things were these like props, like the barrels and bags and chairs and tables and things of that nature. So I just been filling that in a bit, just to make this place not seem so empty. So if we go up here, got added some bars on these windows, a bench. I added some arrow boxes and random things out here, just some more chests and barrels and things. So I also added like a little place to tie up your horses out here. And then over in this building, got another brazier there. And then I started decorating this a little bit, so I've got the door busted down here, and this is supposed to be like a little inn for people, just coming into the region. So I got a little like bar here where you would be checking in. Just got some clutter and tables and things over here, and then up here I started adding like a little bedroom kind of thing going on. I also added this rail over to block the gap in the stairwell. That is not part of the model. Oh, and then in here I kind of started making a little washroom or something. Oh yeah, I also changed out this building over here. It was like a two-story building, but I wasn't in love with it, so I swapped it out for this smaller one. With the ideas, this is going to be the residence for the people that actually run the inn. Is the kind of idea behind that. All right, so I wanted to show you how I got the ladder working. So I'm going to go over here to this ladder so you can kind of see. So the ladder works based on a blueprint that I created. So this little blueprint ladder teleport is what we're talking about. So I'm going to open this up and get it on the correct monitor. All right, so don't worry about that right now. So first we're just going to look at the viewport. So the blueprint for this essentially has three aspects to it. So we have the trigger. So this is a collision sphere, and this is what checks to make sure the player is overlapping it to be able to use it. So if the player is within this sphere, they can then utilize it. The widget here is what shows you the UI prompt to press the button. And right now I'm using a little picture that I made of just the letter E to let you know to press the E key. But that's something that, I might change to something else at some point, but I'm just kind of using that as the default for everything at the moment. And then there is the destination, which currently is not visible because I don't want it to be visible in the game world, but I will show it here. So essentially it is just a sphere that I placed so that I can tell it where to send the player once they click on the thing at the bottom. So I will hide that again. So when we look at the blueprint here, all right, so this box up here is the Interact UI visibility code. So this is what determines when the little UI prompt pops up and when it goes away. So there's two things here that check for when something is overlapping the trigger and when the overlap ends. If this is overlapping another actor, which is the player, if that's true, set the visibility of our widget to yes, it's visible. And then down here, when other actor, which is the player, ends the overlap, when that's true, set the visibility to not visible for the widget. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So essentially, it's the widget is set to be not visible as default. When the player overlaps the trigger, it changes it to visible, and then when they stop overlapping, it changes it back to invisible. And then down here is what we tell it to do when the player actually clicks on it. So I have an event interact here. So this is something that you kind of define like what this event is. For me, it's pressing the E key. So when the player interacts, presses the E key while they're overlapped, it plays a sound, which is a little very short little ladder climbing sound that I have. And then it does a teleport. The target of the teleport is, again, the player pawn. And their destination is this sphere that I created that I just called the destination. So we say, get the world location of the sphere called destination, send that value here. So now the teleport says it's been interacted with, we play a sound, and then we send this thing to this location. Pretty easy. This is one of the simpler things that I have made. So when I actually am trying to make that work in the world, essentially I just drag this blueprint into the world and then set the locations for these things. And actually I'll go down here to this other building where I don't think I've set this up yet. I'll just show you what that looks like. All right, yeah, so this is just another version of that same building. So I'm gonna drag this out. It's kind of hard to get it to snap where I want it. So something else I added in that blueprint that I didn't point out is a little arrow. So I added this little red arrow here just so I can know the direction that this thing is facing, since everything's just spheres essentially. So what I'm going to do is make sure it's perpendicular to the ladder, and then I'm going to place it so that the widget, this little thing, should be about right in the middle of that second rung there. I'm going to turn off the snapping because it wants to go a little bit too far. So yeah, right about the middle of that second rung. And now I need to set the destination. So if I go over here while I have it selected, this shows me all of the components within my blueprint. So I can go down here, click the destination, and now even though my sphere is invisible, you can see where the location of it is. So I will just move that to where I want it, somewhere about there. All right, and now I can test it out. Works like a charm. All right. So that's your closer look at how the ladders work. So up here on the one that I've actually done all the ladders on so far, I'll show you that I have one at the top and the bottom. So you can now go down the ladders. You no longer have to fall. Ta-da! All right. Now the problem that I wanted to solve. So as whenever I want to see how something looks or runs or whatever, I hit the play button here and then I kind of run around the world as if I'm in the game. And the way I have it right now is there is a small light near the player that gives off a little bit of light. It mainly illuminates like yourself, like your own arms and weapons, so that you can see yourself a little bit better. But then attached to the shield, I have another light which is kind of acting as the flashlight, and it kind of is pinned to where the shield would be. So to get it to shine forward, you have to pull up your shield and kind of block. But what I've noticed as I'm kind of running through here is I'm pretty much always blocking because there's so many dark areas like essentially you have to have your light up all the time. So I'm just walking around with my shield up constantly, and it gets kind of annoying. So what I'm thinking I want to do is actually take the light away from the shield, just put it on the front of the player so that it's always shining forward. So you don't have to always pull up your flashlight to be able to see. Hopefully you can just walk around the world normally, and then when you want to maybe make it shine brighter, then you pull up your shield or something like that. So we're gonna play around with that and see what we think. So I need to find my player character. So my first person character here. So I'm going to open up this blueprint. And there's a lot of stuff going on in here that you don't need to worry about, because we're going to go to the viewport here. So I've got my arms and my camera, and I've got this light right here, which is just an area light that is kind of just currently set to a dim glow near the player, and you can kind of see it lighting up the arm there. And then over here attached to the shield I have this spotlight. So this is what is actually shining forward when you're pulling up the shield. So I'm going to try something here. It is, right now this light is attached to the shield. So I think I'm going to pull this out of here and just add it to the player mesh. Did I do that right? I think I did. So if that, I'm going to compile, close. So if that worked, the light should no longer pop up when I block. Yep, it's just staying to my side there, so that worked. Alright, so I'm going to move this thing. Here, I'm going to get it in front of us. I'm going to zero out the rotation. That looks pretty centered. All right, let's see what that looks like. So in the code over here, it's attacking. Here we go, block. All right, so when the input is block, we set a variable, like while it's pressed, we say, are they blocking? Yes. And then we set the intensity of the shield light to 10,000. When the button is released, we set, are they blocking, to no, and we set the intensity back to 500. So that's what has been happening, in all these previous times I've kind of been pulling out the flashlight. Is like there's a light on the shield all the time, but when you block, it gets twice as bright. But now it should be, that light is just in front of the character, so it'll be 500 intensity when we're not blocking, and then when we block, it'll be 10,000. Something that might happen is if we are holding a shield, depending on where that light is on the character, we could potentially actually accidentally put our shield in front of that light and block it. So we'll have to look at that. And actually, to do that, I will add a shield to the scene here. So this is something else I set up. So I have a main hand item blueprint and an offhand item blueprint, and I can drag these into the world, and then individually I can set what the mesh is for that. So instead of having to have a separate item for every different mesh there is, I can have one item that covers all meshes. All right, so that'll look funny because it's just floating right now, but that's okay. All right, so we should have the light just right in front of us. It doesn't. Okay, yeah. When I block, it's definitely immediately getting brighter, but the standard brightness is really, can't even notice it. Alright, so if we bring up the shield, okay, we are shadowing our light with the shield, so we need to get the light further out from us. Alright, so we'll go back into our viewport here. So our spotlight, we need to move it out a little bit. I might move it up slightly too. We'll see how that works. Also, maybe we make the default intensity. Actually, what is the default intensity? Let's see. Let's set this to, how about 8,000? And we'll also go in here and set this to 8,000. Compile, save, and then we'll try again. Okay, 8,000 is definitely much brighter. I can kind of walk around without having to pull out my bright light. However, now my bright light isn't really that bright compared to my current brightness. Let's see what happens when we have this shield on. And yeah, now I'm occluding the light even more, probably because I moved it higher. So the light would need to come out even further, and maybe even move down a little bit just to not get blocked by the shield. I'm kind of wondering how I feel about this level of brightness. Oops, that's another problem I have to figure out. I clicked E to turn on this torch, but I was still too close to this ladder, so it sent me back down. So I need to shrink the interaction size on that or something. Yeah, I definitely feel like I can walk around without having to bust out my bright light, but it's also like the bright light is not noticeable anymore. So let's see, what if we set it to 7,000 and I don't know, 12,000? And just to be safe, we'll set this to 7,000 here too. And then I'm going to bring this out again. I'll move it down just a little bit, so hopefully we can avoid the shield. The only thing I'm worried about here is if the light gets too far out, if something gets close to me, like an enemy, or if I just walk up to a door or something, the light might actually clip through whatever that is and act weird. So let's see how this plays. 7,000 seems reasonable. And then if I bring up my shield, okay, 12,000 is definitely, going from 7 to 12 is definitely a noticeable brightening, but I'm still getting some shadow from my shield. So, I'm considering, do I need more than one light? Do I need to go back to having my light on the shield so I can avoid this shadowing, and then add a different light to just be able to see normally as you're walking through? But I also don't want to get too many lights because I don't want to be, I don't want to make it too computationally heavy if it's, trying to ray trace a bunch of different lights. All right, so I'm going to maybe work on this on my own time, and then hopefully in the next video I can show you what I ended up coming up with. But hopefully you enjoyed this look behind the scenes of the development process again, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Later.